What time is it? It's nation time.
Greetings and welcome to the AfterWords program. My name is Baba Kafense. I'm joined by Bishop Dijanava Akita. This week's preacher of our sermon, Recognize the Time. Welcome to the AfterWords program, Bishop. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I am fine and excited about the prospect of spring being in the air. Thank you for asking. Today's sermon scripture comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 3. And it reads, "There's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens, time to be born and a time to die, time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to bind." The sermon reckons us to, quote, recognize the times. Please describe, if you will, for our viewers and listeners, the current times we find ourselves in.
We're in chaotic and tumultuous times. And I say that because what normally transpires in the course of a day in a democratic society is no longer seen to be normal. You know, there are all kinds of executive orders being carried out and written and declared that are taking away basic human rights and civil rights. There's a pullback on any type of suggestion that diversity is important or that it matters who you are and what you think. You know, we're being pigeonholed into one way of thinking, and people are resisting. They're resisting. It's like trying to put on a pair of shoes that are too small. You can keep trying to cram your foot in it, but even if you put it on, it's not a comfortable fit. And those are the kind of times that we're living in today.
Do you think our people really, in a real way, realize the severity of the times that we're currently facing?
Well, I think the severity becomes apparent when it begins to touch you personally. You know, when it's at a distance, you say, "Oh, that's really sad what's going on over there." But when you see the things the restrictions are affecting you. For example, there's executive orders in the making to say that they want to dismantle the Department of Education. And for so many generations, we've always looked at education as a way of elevating our community, elevating ourselves. You're making sure that we can fit in the world that is rapidly changing. And when you say you want to eliminate education, that means that you are trying to limit access to the possibility of people being able to enlighten them, become enlightened and to be engaged.
You invoked the spirit in the name of a very important and giant ancestor, Mama Ella Baker, emphasizing expressing her emphasis on the need for us to be organized, dedicated, and to commit ourselves to the ongoing work. How these particular approaches, organization, dedication, and commitment can serve us to respond to what we're faced with at this time?
Well, I look at it as a situation, for example, if you're in the middle of a storm, you can be, very engaged and say, "I need to do something." But if you're just running around randomly, flailing with your hands in the air, not having a system or a process to fortify your house or to have supplies available or to have emergency equipment there, you're just at the whim of whatever happens in the storm. So organization is necessary. You have to figure out how can you build something in the midst of disaster. How do you prepare yourself? What do you do? And I was enthralled the more I read about her, because she engaged in the struggle for decades. She didn't just happen upon the scene during the 60s. She started this in the 30s. Excuse me. And she was engaged on a regular basis. She was involved in more than 30 different organizations. You can say, well, why so many? if she was in an organization and she felt that it was not meeting the particular need that was necessary, then she would move and find an organization that would meet the purpose for which it was there. In other words, she was constantly engaged and constantly trying to inspire people to do something about the condition. And she didn't have to be in the limelight. She was content with being in the background, but she was pushing the movement forward. She was pushing the program forward.
And when I heard that, particularly her involvement in such an array of organizations, I was reminded of Jaramogi Abebe Ajiman and the degree of his activism
Absolutely.
in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He also had a similar penchant, I think, that she had. She was very instrumental in initiating SNCC, which was young people, and we know Jaramogi was committed to that endeavor as well, developing the talent, identifying the talent, and developing it in young people to be leadership.
Yeah, we provided a umbrella, so to speak, for all of those organizations that were trying to do something. We were a safe haven for them to come in and to create that kind of organizational structure or strategies to move them forward. They didn't necessarily have to be on in the same organization. They just had to be working for the same goal, which was the enlightenment and the liberation of Black people. And if they were working for the liberation of Black people, then they were welcomed within our midst and encouraged to continue the struggle.
Indeed. And another point to make in the sermon that kind of spoke to me is when you expect others to act in your interest, it is out of your control, which of course is, to me, refers to Kuji Chagalia. Could you expound on that idea, please, particularly in these times?
Well, we can't go, for example, there's this one particular fast food chain that says, have it your way. But really, you don't have it your way when you go into a fast food restaurant. You're going to have it the way they give it to you. So you can say you want things to happen, but if you wait for somebody else to do it for you, it's not necessarily going to be the way it fits your purpose. And when we relinquish control over our education, over our religion, over our civil rights to someone else, we're waiting and we're hoping that they will act in our best interest. But if it's not in their best interest, we can't expect it necessarily to come out the way we want it to come out. But what about self-determination? For example, we can complain about the prices of vegetables and foods, but as we put our dollars together, if we build urban gardens or get our own crops and start growing our own food, we can control how we have access to those kind of vegetables on our own. So the few dollars that could maybe get you a Happy Meal could provide meals galore for your community and for yourself.
Indeed.
And that's Kudichagalia, self-determination, where we decide that we want to do something for our own benefit. And only we can determine what is good for us. No one else can tell us what's good for us. We have that power. We have that divinity within us, that God-inspired divinity that gives us the opportunity to recognize that we have to act on our own interests, and we have the ability to do that.
And I think we need that more now, more than ever. Could
Absolutely.
You say a little more about the programs of the Shrine of the Black Madonna and how they address the current issues that you raise and that we face as a people in contemporary times?
One of the things that we emphasize is education. We know that we have to educate ourselves. There's a vast amount of knowledge that exists, but if we don't have access to that knowledge and we're given a misinterpretation, it's not going to be any good. So we started teaching our children at a young age who they are, what kind of community we want to be, the history of our people. We can complain about the fact that there's not enough access in the public school system, but we had to create our own system. So we put together Keebler Academy, which talks about enlightening ourselves. We have the Learning Center in Atlanta, Georgia, that teach children how to read at the age of 2. We have the Cultural Center, where we have our display of history and culture in the Pan-African view. We have classes that inspire one another. inspire our community, enlighten. We have Enter the Black Hole. We have African Studies. We also have food pantries across the country where we understand that there's a need for helping impoverished communities have access to food, to fresh vegetables. And we do that every week. So those are some of the programs that we have that are engaging in trying to bring about some type of relief in our community and to build an institutional power for ourselves.
Thank you. As we come to a close, is there any one thought or idea that you'd like to leave with our viewers and listeners?
Well, just that we have to be mindful of what's going on around us, and we can't act like we can be on the sideline. This is no time for us to be on the sideline as if we're watching a tennis match and we're wondering who's going to come out on top. We are engaged in the struggle for our survival, and things are not going to necessarily get better. They may get worse, but we have to prepare ourselves for what is going to happen. And that means that we have to understand and believe in the power that we have within ourselves to do that.
Thank you again for a powerful sermon and this enriching conversation that has followed. I'd like to thank our viewers as well and urge you all to tune in, watch our sermons every week at 11:30 on Eastern Time on the Bilakuta Shrine online, and to, of course, join us for the afterwards discussion that follows. I'd like to close with the words of our patron saint, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will.
Ashe.
What time is it? It's nation time.